Welcome back to the Galley of the Sun. Tomorrow is Sunday. So Sunday here at the Galley usually means big meals. We have friends over, we have family over. We've done Sunday dinner with all of our family and friends for about the last 8 years. So in that time, we've done lots of different cooks. We've done ribs, we've done pulled pork, we've done enchiladas, we've done all kinds of things. Normally Sunday dinners are my cook because tomorrow we're gonna smoke a brisket. So in preparations, today we're going to trim that brisket and then inject. I've already prepped the injection. It's just a basic beef injection. I use 3 tablespoons of beef base and 3 tablespoons of an au jus. Those will be linked in the description below. And then a quart of water. Cook it, get it nice and mixed, and then cool it down because you don't want to put that hot liquid into the brisket. So let's go ahead and grab the brisket and start trimming, and then we'll inject it. What we have here is not a failure to communicate. It is a 19-pound full pack brisket. Now what does that mean? A brisket is made up of 2 muscles. The point here at the end, which is a very fatty muscle, lots of intermuscular fat that runs through it, makes it very tender, very juicy. And then on the other side, you have a flat that is a very lean muscle. So today we're gonna trim this down, get it nice and slim so that smoke will flow across it nice and even. And then we're gonna inject the flat with that beef injection that I made. When the girls bought this brisket, they bought it from the local grocery store, and the butcher there left me a lot of work to do. So you're gonna get a good idea of how I trim a brisket today. Usually use one hand so I have a good grip on the knife. And we're gonna take off all of the excess fat up here from the point. Leaving, this is the fat cap, we'll leave a good 1/4 inch of fat down here on the flat side, but we'll trim up most of this and get it nice and round. Here we go. So we take this off, this hard fat up here, because it just won't render down fully and it's not gonna add anything, and it's actually gonna block the flavor of the smoke and the rub that we're gonna put on it tomorrow morning before we smoke it from getting into that muscle. Now most of this, what I'm trimming off, we'll hold on to and we'll add it to a grind for ground beef, sausage, and so forth. While you're trimming, if you find you're cutting too deep, just back off a little bit, shave up, and then continue on. A nice sharp knife helps a lot in this. Okay, I'm gonna trim off this edge here. You see the gray kind of meat, a nice clean edge for that smoke to penetrate. Go slow, take your time. It's easier to make a second pass to get it at the right level than you might end up digging too deep and take off meat that you want to actually cook. Flip this over and get the backside now. Not too much to do here. All right, there's a big piece of hard fat right here, and that's not going to render down. So we're going to trim that in as much as possible, with still keeping kind of an aerodynamic shape so that the smoke, when it rolls over it, flows naturally. Here, now that it's cleaned up, you can really see those 2 muscles. The flat comes in, and you see this line of fat right here that separates the flat and the point that sits on top of it. That's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and get it injected. Okay, remember I've said I made about a quart of injection. So here's 2 cups, which is what we're gonna try to get into the flat side of this brisket. Should be okay getting that much in. The rest of it I'm gonna reserve because this is a 19-pound brisket. A lot of people are saying, wow, Greg, I don't need a brisket that big. Well, let me tell you, we have some great things to do with leftover brisket. In another video, you're gonna see Charlotte make brisket stroganoff, one of my favorites, and also a brisket pot pie that will just blow your mind. So let's go ahead and get this injected. Today I'm using my pistol injector. We're gonna stick this in, make a little pocket, and then inject the fluid. Don't worry if some of that injection comes out, it's okay. You just wanna move about every inch or so. Move about every inch or so and give it a couple of pumps and get some of that beef flavor into it. It's really going to enhance the flavor of this brisket. Keep that flat nice and juicy. It'll make a world of difference in the end. Okay, it looks like we got about 1.5 cups of that in there and it's pretty well saturated. We're gonna let this sit in the refrigerator overnight. I know what you're thinking. You're like, but Greg, you said you were cooking for a brisket for tomorrow. I am. And tomorrow, when we start smoking, we'll talk about the process we use here and how in 5 hours, you're gonna have a brisket, comes off the smoker and rests, and about 3 hours after that, that is just the juiciest, smokiest, most tender brisket I think you've ever had. We'll see you then. It's Sunday morning, which means it's time to get the brisket onto the smoker. I've got the smoker preheating up to 350 degrees. We just need to put the rub onto the brisket and then get it on. Today we're using Oakridge Black Ops brisket rub, which is the only rub I ever use on a brisket. It's perfect. So we're gonna put a liberal coat across all surfaces on the brisket. This is a large piece of meat. Don't be afraid that you're gonna over season it. You won't. I like to do this in a metal pan. Keeps the rub contained, less of a mess. We're gonna let that sit a couple minutes, let it start looking like it's damp, and then we'll turn it, get the other side, get the edges, and get it on the smoker. That nice liberal coating of rub along with the smoke is going to produce a great bark on this brisket, and it's just going to come out wonderful as far as flavor and tenderness. So we're going to let this tack up for a little bit and then we'll get it out to the smoker. We're outside at the Yoder. What we're smoking on today, the Yoder YS640 pellet smoker. I'm using Cabela's bourbon barbecue brown sugar pellets to smoke this brisket today. So we're gonna get it on, put it on the top shelf, fat cap down, put the point towards the fire, close the lid, and let it smoke for probably about 2.5 hours until we get a nice bark. Internal temperature at that time should be between 160 and 165, but the temperature isn't so much what we're looking for as the bark, because we want to make sure that bark is adhered before we wrap it and finish. Let's get it on the smoker. Okay, now all that's left to do is wait. It's been about 2 hours and 45 minutes since we put the brisket on, and it has come up to about 155 degrees internal. More importantly, the bark that we've established on it from that rub and smoke is exactly where we want it. So it's time to pull it off and wrap it in butcher paper and beef tallow. Today we're going to use Wagyu beef tallow. Brisket's over here. We're going to set up the paper to wrap it in, wrap it up, get it back on the smoker finish it until it gets up to 205. So we're using 2 sheets. We're going to overlap them 6 to 8 inches so we have plenty of coverage. Lay down the beef tallow so that when we roll it, it's got plenty of coverage on both sides. All right, that looks good. I'm going to pull the probe that I've been using to monitor, lay it down starting fat cap up, and then roll it, and we'll end with it fat cap down, nice and sealed tight, ready to go back on the smoker. When you're wrapping, you want to try to keep it as tight as possible. That way that bark that we've built will stay intact. All right, it's ready to go back on the smoker. We're going to put it back on the smoker with the probe in, keep it there until it gets, again, 205 internal, then we'll pull it off and we'll talk about how we're going to take care of it from there. The brisket has hit 203 degrees, and more importantly, when I take an instant read thermometer and probe it, it goes in and out just like butter. So we've pulled the brisket off. It's sitting in this pan right now because what we need to do is we need to let it rest. I like to let it rest about 5 hours. What that does is it allows the juices which draw into the middle of the brisket during the cook to allow them to release back out. But to do that, it needs to do it slowly. It needs to come down in temperature very slowly. So I have a very, very high-tech device which allows me to do this. Let me grab it. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a cooler. Super high tech, right? So coolers designed to keep things cold are insulated. What that also does is it'll keep things warm. And what it will do is it'll allow the temperature of the brisket to come down very slowly, and when it's resting, allow those juices to flow back out and rest throughout the meat, and it'll come out super juicy all the way across. So we're gonna take it in the pan, set it in this cooler, close it up, let it rest for about 5 hours until we're ready to eat dinner, and then we'll cut into it. We'll catch up with you then. It's been 5 hours since we put the brisket into the cooler, and I've been told that I could wait no longer before I cut this because people are hungry. So let's pull it out, cut it, and take a look. All right, take a look at that bark. Is that not the most gorgeous thing you've seen? Oh, it just cuts like butter. And look at that. Gorgeous smoke ring. Perfectly juicy. And remember, this was smoked in 5 hours. Does not need to smoke 12, 18 hours to get perfection on a brisket. Let's cut it and give it a taste. All right, look at that. So juicy, tender, just pulls apart. Wow, that might be one of the best briskets I've ever made. If you're liking what you're seeing, what we're doing, give us a like. Subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about this video, any of the others, and anything you'd like to see us do in the future. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Galley of the Sun.